All right, let's dive into one of the most fascinating and honestly elegant processes in all of biology, programmed cell death, apoptosis. Now, I know, cell death sounds kind of grim, right? But this isn't about failure or disease. We're talking about a cell's incredible ability to carry out a clean, controlled, and absolutely essential act of self-destruction.
So, just how important is this? Well, get this. How do you think you got your fingers? Believe it or not, when you were just a tiny embryo, your hands were basically little webbed paddles. Apoptosis is the master sculptor that came in and carefully eliminated all the cells between your developing digits, carving out the hand you have today. So yeah, it's not just death, it's a powerful creative force.
So let's start with the basics. What exactly is going on when a cell gets the signal that its time is up? In this first section, we're going to look at what this whole process actually is and how it stays so incredibly neat and tidy. Okay, the key words to lock onto here are programmed and controlled. And maybe the most important part, it does it all without causing inflammation. You see, this is the polar opposite of another kind of cell death called necrosis. That's the messy, ugly death that happens from an injury. Apoptosis is a pre-planned, orderly takedown. The cell uses its own internal toolkit to dismantle itself from the inside out, making sure none of its guts spill out and cause a mess for its neighbors. So what does this tidy suicide actually look like up close? Well, first, the cell kind of shrinks in on itself, pulling away from the other cells around it. Then inside, its DNA, the chromatin, packs itself into these super dense little bundles. After that, the cell's outer membrane starts to bubble and form these weird little protrusions we call blebs. And for the grand finale, the whole cell just breaks apart into these small, perfectly sealed packages called apoptotic bodies. Seriously, it's like a building being professionally demolished, piece by piece, instead of just being blown to smithereens.
Now, how does the body handle the cleanup? These little apoptotic bodies don't just float around aimlessly. They actively signal for their own garbage collection. They flip a molecule called phosphatidylserine to their outer surface, which is basically a giant flashing "eat me" sign. This signal calls in the cleanup crew, immune cells that just gobble them up and recycle the parts. No mess, no inflammation. It is the perfect clean getaway.
Okay, so we know a cell can dismantle itself beautifully. But what or who gives the order? As it turns out, there are two main ways to flip that self-destruct switch. One signal comes from inside the cell, and the other is an order that comes from the outside.
So on the left, you've got the intrinsic pathway. Think of this as the cell's own internal quality control. If it senses something is catastrophically wrong inside, like its DNA is damaged beyond repair or proteins are misfolded all over the place, it can make the noble decision to take one for the team. This process is heavily managed by a group of proteins called the BCL2 family. Then, on the right, you have the extrinsic pathway. This is a direct command from the outside. For example, an immune cell can come along and basically ring a special death receptor on the cell's surface, delivering a very clear message. It's time to go. So we know what triggers the decision, but who, or rather, what, actually carries out the sentence? Once that kill switch is flipped, a highly specialized demolition crew is unleashed inside the cell. It is time to meet the executioners. This demolition crew is a family of enzymes called caspases. These are the undisputed molecular executioners of the cell. And the crazy thing is, they're just hanging out inside almost every one of our cells right now, but they're dormant in an inactive state. You can think of them like a whole toolkit of microscopic scissors, all sealed up, just waiting for the signal to be unleashed.
And here's where it gets really efficient. They don't just switch on one at a time. They activate in a cascade, a massive chain reaction. The initial signal, whether it's from inside or outside the cell, wakes up what's called an initiator caspase. This initiator is like the foreman on the demolition site. It goes and activates hundreds, even thousands of executioner caspases. And these are the enzymes that do the real work, chopping up the cell's skeleton and activating other enzymes to shred the DNA. It's an unstoppable signal amplification, and once it starts, the cell's fate is sealed.
All right, we've been deep in the mechanics, so let's zoom way out and look at the big picture. Why is this tiny cellular drama so unbelievably important? Well, this process is, quite literally, the sculptor of our bodies, and a critical gatekeeper standing between health and disease.
We already saw how it sculpted our hands, which is just mind-blowing. But it's also constantly working behind the scenes. It prunes our developing nervous system, it gets rid of rogue immune cells that might decide to attack our own bodies, and, this one is huge, it forces cells with dangerous DNA mutations to eliminate themselves before they can become cancer. It's a non-stop, essential process of maintenance, renewal, and protection.
But this whole system is a tightrope walk, a really, really delicate balancing act. And when that balance gets thrown off, the consequences can be devastating. Not enough apoptosis? Well, that's a classic hallmark of cancer, where damaged cells refuse to die and just keep multiplying.
But too much apoptosis, and you get massive cell loss, which is a key feature in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. It's a system where being in perfect harmony is everything.
And all of this leads to a really beautiful way of looking at the whole thing. Apoptosis isn't really an end. It's more of a beginning. It's the fundamental process that life itself uses to renew and protect itself. Every quiet, orderly exit of a single cell helps sculpt our bodies, prune away danger, and maintain the delicate equilibrium that keeps us alive and healthy.
Which brings us to a final, pretty profound thought. We know this balance between cell life and cell death is everything. So what if we could learn to fine-tune it? What if we could become masters of that balance? Imagine if we could dial apoptosis up to command cancer cells to die, or dial it down to prevent the loss of precious neurons in the brain. Could we hold the key to stopping some of our worst diseases and maybe even aging itself? It's an incredible question, and the answers are waiting to be found in this beautiful art of a cell's self-destruction.